Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Mr. Mike's Music Method LLC. Today I want to start a very exciting project I'm really excited about is working on or showing you a tutorial of the very famous Capriccio by Brahms, Opus 116 number 7. First I'm going to outline what I will do in this video. I'm going to address each topic and then we'll get into it. First I'm going to talk about the history of the Capriccio, and then I'm going to talk about pieces that you should probably know or work on before playing this Capriccio. I'm going to talk about muscle memory. I'm going to talk about using your eyesight on the keyboard. I'm going to talk about the theory. I'm going to talk about foreshadowing, what Brahms does in the first section, and how he kind of fills out using that theme from the first section in the middle section, which is really, really cool. Please remember to be patient because this is a step-by-step tutorial. This tutorial is not meant for virtuosic or virtuoso pianists. There are many of you out there. If you view this and you find it favorable, wonderful, wonderful. If you find it unfavorable, please don't comment, and maybe you can do a tutorial about this piece as well. I'm an educator first, and I really just want to educate people about this piece and how to play it and interpret it and that sort of thing. Thank you. Okay, so the first thing we're going to go over is the history of the Capriccio. It dates back to 1600, and probably the most famous Capriccio is by Bach, Departure of a Beloved Brother in B-flat major. So Capriccios, I would say primarily the two composers responsible for making the Capriccio famous would be Bach and then Brahms. There aren't too many Capriccios that I'm familiar with in the classical era. Of course, Bach was born in 1685 and died in 1750, and so he's in the Baroque era. And Brahms was born in 1833 and died in 1897, and is basically, I would say, the mid to late Romantic period. Anyway, I also want to touch on the form of the piece. First of all, it's very virtuosic, okay? It's kind of like a toccata. A lot of people don't know what toccata means, but a toccata basically gives the musician a chance to, demonstrate their prowess on the instrument, how well they play the instrument. And it shows very virtuosic things, much like the way Franz Liszt wrote for the piano. Capriccio is very similar in that it's very virtuosic and gives the pianist a chance to showcase his or her abilities at the instrument, okay? The Capriccio, this one is in binary form, so we have an A theme, we have a B theme, and then it ends with an A theme, and of course there's a coda. And there are many pieces that resemble this sort of form, binary form, like the scherzo. Okay, so the scherzo has the scherzo on the outside, the trio in the middle, and then the scherzo at the end. Now, during Bach, Beethoven, and Haydn's time, composers that they and their contemporaries, used scherzos within their pieces to sort of break up maybe the bigger sections, like the first and the last movements. So those Germanic composers would use the scherzo to sort of liven and lighten everything up. They would also use the minuet, also sometimes in binary form, and they basically, again, did this just to keep things light and lighthearted. So the scherzo was kind of a passing movement. Not that it isn't important, but it didn't really get revolutionized until Chopin took the scherzo and made it a romantic solo work, okay? And he wrote 4 scherzos. Brahms wrote 1 scherzo in E-flat minor. It's very good. And Chopin wrote 4 scherzos, and each of them really showcase these beautiful, long, 10, 12-minute pieces for the piano in binary form. So scherzo, trio, scherzo. Sometimes, like scherzo number 1, we have the scherzo, the trio, scherzo, and the trio again. I think they pretty much all 4 of them follow that sort of intertwining of the scherzo and the trio. Usually the scherzo is very fast and dramatic and percussive, and the trio is very lyrical and soft and subtle. The Brahms Capriccio No. 7, Opus 116 in D minor, follows the same rule. It kind of showcases the outer work, the musician's prowess and demand or command over the instrument, and the outer sections are very percussive, while the middle section is very lighthearted and very, very lyrical. I think that's all I want to say about the form of the piece, or the form of the Capriccio. What I'd like to talk about now is what pieces I think are important to learn before you play this particular scherzo. Pretty much anything in D minor is relevant preceding Brahms, not after Brahms, preceding Brahms. So, Bach Invention No. 4, or the Tempest Sonata by Beethoven, which is pretty overwhelming, but if you can handle it, then it's a good piece to look at and to reference for the key of D minor. I would really encourage you to play a lot of tarantellas, the Italian songs, because they are very similar in their feel, with the broken arpeggios that I'll show you a little bit later. I think the Chopin preludes in C minor, the Chopin prelude in E minor, D flat major, and the A major preludes, I think, are a good place to start with. The Rachmaninoff C sharp minor prelude, I'm not really 100% on where it stands. Should it be played after this piece or before? Probably after. And definitely, if you want to play the prelude in G minor by Rachmaninoff, I would suggest playing this Capriccio first in D minor, because again, it's very similar. As well as the Brahms Intermezzo in A minor, and the second movement of Beethoven's Sonata No. 9, which is in E minor as well, and is very similar to the A minor Intermezzo by Brahms. So those pieces and works, I think, preceding, you should work on those, and then afterwards you can tackle pieces by Rachmaninoff, like the C sharp minor and G minor preludes. Now I'm going to talk about the music and the theory. First thing I want to cover is that it is in 2/4 time. Okay, so that means 2 quarters per measure. Okay, we again are in the key of D minor, and you want to think 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so now I'm going to help you kind of navigate and figure out the best way to practice and learn and memorize this piece. Okay, I think what you should do first is look at each arpeggio, ascending or descending. The right hand is descending and the left hand is ascending. Instead of looking at them as 4 individual notes, I think you should first look at them like blocked chords. I'm going to say that again. You should take the 4 individual notes and play them all 4 at the same time as a blocked chord, and move on to the next measure doing the same thing. In my opinion, first hands apart, then hands together. If you're a very good sight reader, then you don't have to do that, and you could just sit there and play. But if you struggle with sight reading and you want to learn this piece, that's what I suggest you do. So I'm going to show you how to do that first, okay? I'm also going to be explaining the theory as I go through the chords. So we're just focusing on the right hand, excuse me, and the first chord we have is G sharp diminished. We have G sharp, B natural, D natural, and F. But of course it's descending, so F is at the top, D is in the middle, B follows that, and G sharp is at the very bottom. So we have as our first chord. And then it goes to G diminished without the 5th. So there's only 3 notes. The G diminished chord is G, B flat, E from the bottom up. So the first 2 chords are, so G sharp, and then we move everything down a half step except for the 5th. So we have the root from G sharp down to G, the second note, or the third, from B down to B flat, and the top note, which is the 7th, from F to E natural. So we have, and then it's going to do it again. But this time the chord is F diminished, so it's F, G sharp, B and D, and then we're going to go to A major. I inverted it incorrectly. So we're going from F, G sharp, B, D, F diminished, and we're going down to A major. So we're going from F down to C sharp with the thumb. So here's the F diminished chord again, F, G sharp, B, D, all 4 notes at once, and then the A major chord with the C sharp on the bottom. This is a pretty big jump for the pinky as well. From the F diminished chord in the second measure, we are moving the pinky down from D to A. So you might want to practice the outer notes first of each chord and then slowly add in the middle notes until finally. So I'm going to play the first row for you, the first 1, 2, 3, 4 measures, blocking the chords with my right hand. Sorry, I got to start on the right chord. Okay. Again, first 4 measures with my right hand, blocked chords. Now we're going to go back and work on the articulation. There is a dotted note above the last chord of each measure, above or below, and there's also a slur. So it's kind of like portato, which is in between staccato and legato. Okay, so here's staccato, here's legato, and here's portato. Not quite legato, not quite staccato, but portato. The easiest reference or easiest way to interpret portato, I would say, is to think of a heartbeat, okay? So I'm going to now play the same thing with the articulation. And there is an 8th rest at the end of each measure. And then we're going to continue on to the next row. I think we spent enough time on the first row. Now, the beginning of the second measure, we have an A diminished chord. So it's A, sorry, let me build it from the bottom up. It's A, C, E flat, A. There's no 5th. We're missing the F sharp, but the F sharp is in the left hand. We'll talk about that a little bit later. This is very common, by the way. If one note is missing in the right hand, it's most likely going to be in the left hand for pretty much every genre of music, not just classical. That's really important to remember. And if the note is missing in the left hand, then it's probably going to be in the melody of the right hand. Again, this is applicable to all genres, not just classical music. So we have A diminished, going to G major. In my opinion, this is a little easier in terms of muscle memory, because you're not moving that far. So here's the A diminished chord again, A, C, E flat, A, moving down to G major. Okay, so what your thumb is going down to G. Easy, it's a whole step. You know, it's not like the beginning of the piece where you're moving from F down to C sharp, or from F down to G, which is a big jump. That's a 7th, by the way. Okay? Anyway, so backtracking to what I was saying before about the A chord. A diminished to G diminished. I'm sorry, G major. G, B, D, G major. And then what's really nice is you get to keep your thumb on G because the next chord is G diminished. So after you play the first chord of the 5th measure, then you go and play the second chord of the 5th measure is G. And the 6th measure, number 6 measure number 6, starts as a G diminished chord and then goes down a whole step to F major. Okay, so let's go down the chords. Let's go over the chords on the measures 5, 6. Actually, let's go back to the beginning. The first 6 measures. I actually went to the 7th measure and played the F major chord. So when you get used to it, What you want to try and do is go faster and faster, and then eventually I'm messing up a little bit, but that's okay. So that's basically the outer shell of the right hand before we get to the middle section, which is kind of a bridge. The next section I call the bridge section, which we'll talk about later. Now we're going to go over the left hand. Beginning of the piece, we have a low D in the left hand. I like to use my pointer finger. I feel like it gives us a lot of percussive sound, which is what Brahms is looking for. He's looking for a percussive sound because this is a percussive section of the piece, okay? So I like to use my pointer finger again. I know I just said that. There's no articulation marking, so there's no slur, there's no fermata, there's no staccato or legato mark. It's just D by itself. I do want to point out, and I should have said this earlier, and I'm sorry that I didn't, but I do want to point out that it says forte and then says ben marked, which means ben marcato, okay, unabbreviated, which means pay attention to my dynamics and articulations because they're very important. Okay, so if you see composers like, I think Beethoven uses it maybe once. Franz Liszt and Brahms use it a lot in their pieces. And so does Prokofiev and Rachmaninoff. So if you ever see ben marcato or ben marked, that means pay attention to their dynamics. Interestingly enough, we know that Beethoven was an extremely serious composer and that he really insisted on his dynamics as well. He's right there. That's my idol right there. All right, so we start with the D, and then we bring the hand up for a C sharp diminished chord. So we're going from D with the pointer finger. You're welcome to use your pinky. I just think the pointer has more strength to it. And we're going to our first chord from there. The first chord is C sharp diminished. It is C sharp, E, G, B flat, aka A sharp. The only reason it's not spelled as A sharp is because B is flat in the signature. Otherwise, it would probably be A sharp. Or no, it's correct because B is the dominant, is the seventh of C. So it's the leading tone, so it is B flat. Excuse me. Okay, so C sharp diminished, C sharp, G, C sharp, E, G, B flat, going to D diminished. D, F, G sharp, B. So again, C sharp, E, G, B flat. That's the first chord at the very beginning of the piece for the left hand. And then the next chord is D diminished, D, F, G sharp, B. So it's going up half step. And if Brahms wanted to, he could keep going up and up and up and up by half step using diminished chords. But he stops here. Now let's also talk about the C sharp chord going to the D diminished chord. The relevance, the importance of the C sharp going to D. Where does that come from? Think about the music theory. If you play a D minor scale, a C sharp in the scale, so Brahms is using the the harmonic minor, and he's putting it in his piece. So he's saying, I want the C sharp to go to D diminished because of music theory. That's why it does it. And then the next chord is A major. So we have low A below the C sharp. We have A, C sharp, E, A, going to, again, D diminished. So again, it's the relationship of C sharp in the A major chord, which is the dominant of D minor, which pretty much every composer does. They eventually go to the key of A minor. In fact, the middle section of this piece is in A minor. So we have C sharp to D again. So we have A, C sharp, E, A, going up to D diminished. memory is important because look at my hand. My hand is in position for that A major chord. In that inversion. It's not in root position. Oh, that's not right. Oh, I'm sorry. My hand is in position for the D diminished chord. So watch. See that? See how fast I did that? It's a little tight up here. But I did that quickly because as soon as I'm finished playing the A chord, my fingers are already in preparation for D diminished. So let's go over all the chords at the beginning of the piece, the first 4 measures for the left hand. First we start with a D, then we have C sharp diminished, to D diminished, then we have A major, back to D diminished, without the third. So it does it again. Sorry. And that's the first 4 measures of the left hand. Now we're going to go to measures 5 and 6. We have F sharp diminished. We have F sharp, C, E flat. I'm sorry, measure 5. We're at measure 5. We have F sharp, C, E flat. Remember I told you that the F sharp is missing from the right hand. We have an A diminished chord without the F sharp, but the F sharp is in the base of the left hand. So I told you we were going to talk about that. The F sharp is being pulled out of the right hand and put in the left hand. So the first chord is F sharp diminished, and then we have G. G major. It's just an arpeggio. G, B, D, G. It's easy. And then we go to E diminished with B flat and D flat, and then we go down to F major. Okay, so let's go over measures 5 and 6, left hand. I'm going to do that again really slowly. And now let's go over the first 6 measures of the left hand in blocked chords. And that's it. That's basically the outer shell of the left hand and of the right hand, and it does the same thing starting at, I don't have measure numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. At measure 11, it's very similar. Everything is syncopated by a 16th note. Okay. What I want to talk about next is interpretation and foreshadowing, because I said we would. And also talk about where your eyes need to go, because I mentioned that as well. So when you're playing the beginning of the piece, you should be looking at your right thumb going down to the G natural, and then your right thumb again going down to the C sharp. Now with the left hand, you should be looking at your left thumb going up to B, and then your left thumb again going up to B again. Okay, from A to B. And the left hand, and that's what you should really kind of focus on, is either the thumb or the pinky of the hand, whatever's easiest to see. In this case, it's the thumb, because the thumbs are the closest to each other. In some cases, if you're moving, say, from this C down to this C, it's better to look at the pinky, or where the pinky note is. If I'm playing a C major chord here, my eyes are here for where my pinky needs to be, not where it is. Now I'm looking back. So I'm actually looking at the opposite chord that I'm playing. And that's the kind of muscle memory you want in your eyes. Okay, so now, let's talk about my favorite thing about this piece. We're going to go to measure 8. Okay? And I'm going to play for you the left hand slowly. And then we're going to go down a couple measures. And I'm going to play the left hand again. Okay? this time starting from the end of measure 7. And now we're going to go down to the bottom of the page. I don't know what measure it is, so 4, 8, 12, 16. I want to make sure I'm right. 20, measure 20. I'm going to play measures 20 and 21 with the left hand. And again. And this time very slowly. What's cool about this is, first of all, this is happening incredibly fast. Okay, we have allegro agitato as our tempo marking. I don't know why I drew a blank there. I'm not gonna examine it. Okay, allegro agitato, which means really fast, like lightning. Okay, think about third movement, Beethoven. Moonlight Sonata, unfortunately called Moonlight Sonata. It's not really called the Moonlight Sonata. Someone gave it that name after Beethoven's death. I have a whole other tutorial probably about that piece. Anyway, Allegro agitato is really fast. And then, so what I'm trying to say is that these passages that I'm playing are happening incredibly quickly. And if you don't take the time to play them slowly, you're going to miss the connection between here the second theme, the B theme, the main theme of the B section. Remember, it's in binary form. So the main theme of the B section is foreshadowed here. Listen. Remember that. Listen. That happens at measure 20 in the beginning of the piece, and then it's recalled here. And you should actually probably practice just that middle theme and then the outer theme. Because if you look, your hands are crossing over quite a bit, okay? So I think that's phenomenal. I mean, I learned this piece 15 years ago, and I didn't notice that. Or maybe I did and I forgot. 15 years is a long time. And, you know, 15 years later, I have a completely different outlook on it, of course. And another 10 or 15 years, when I revisit it, I'll probably do another tutorial. Who knows? But the point is that it's phenomenal that we take that section for granted, but Brahms is like, you know, sorry. I just love the music here. And then that grows, and this section is why I think it's really important to learn the intermezzo in A minor first, because in the second part of the B section we have this kind of stuff, these octaves, you know, which if you remember the Brahms intermezzo in A minor, it's the beginning and ending, again, it's in binary form. Is a ton of octaves. There's a ton of octaves. There's a ton of half steps, which is why I think it's important to learn the second movement of Beethoven's Sonata Number 9 in E major. The second movement's in E minor, and it has a lot of half steps in it. And I am convinced that Beethoven that was Sonata Number 27, looked back at the second movement of Sonata Number 9, and said, well, that's a really cool theme. And guess where else he uses this idea? Very famous. Isn't that cool? So anyway, work on half steps. You know, work on those pieces. If you've not already worked on those other pieces, learn them first. Watch this tutorial. Try the first page. Let me know how it goes. I'm a teacher, so I'm willing to help. So leave your comments and questions and whatever in the comment section below. Hit subscribe if you want to. Hit the like button, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks so much for your time.